Okay, so things are looking pretty good inside our artwork here. We have our phantom bots. They're looking pretty menacing here. Now, I want to show you something new called an opacity mask. You got the basics of transparency and working with blending modes. Now let's go a little bit further with this whole concept. So I'm going to go and open up another project file. So I'm going to go File, Open, and make sure that you head up to your desktop, Project Files folder, Part 1, inside the Lesson 6 folder, and we're looking for Galactic Getaway. Galactic Getaway, go ahead and open up that file, and you should see something like this here. So what I've done here is I've just created some text for us. Again, I used a gradation inside that text, and there's a nice thick border happening around the entire text object here. We'll talk about that. All of the text, by the way, is also outlined, so it's just path. It's not editable text or anything like that. Now, what we want to do is we want to set it up so that a graphic or a photograph appears inside the letters of our text here. And what we're going to do is use the letters inside our text to create what we call an opacity mask. And this is all done through the transparency palette. So let's get started here. I'm going to go and place another file inside my Galactic Getaway file. So I'll go File and then down to Place. And inside your Lesson 6 folder, you should see a file called galaxy.jpg. Go ahead and place that file. Looks like a nice place to visit here. Now, what we need to do is, just like when we were creating masks in one of those earlier lessons, we have to take our cookie dough here, and we have to move it behind our cookie cutter. So go ahead and grab your layers palette, and I'll give you a quick tour of our file here. Here, the first layer that I have, if I open up layer 1, is my linked file. That's my imported graphic there. Underneath that, I have group here. That is my Great Galactic Getaway text there. And underneath that, I have the black outline. Now, this last layer here, group, that's another object a little bit further down in the document. We'll be talking about that guy shortly. Now, here's what I'd like you to do. Make sure all of your layers are visible. You can turn everything back on if you happen to turn them off. Grab your linked file layer here. Click on the little target there. And what I'd like you to do is drag this guy underneath the group. So in other words, my imported graphic here is sitting between my black outline text, this guy here, and my text on top, the text with the gradient. So he's sitting in between those two layers. That's what I want. And you can position him here a little bit if you want to scale him a little bit. Go ahead there. Just hold down Shift so you don't get any distortion happening. So I have something like this. And what I'll do is I'll hold down Shift and I'll click on my text here as well. So I have the cookie dough and the cookie cutter selected here. Inside my transparency palette, hopefully you have it handy there, I have my little thumbnail preview of what I'm going to get here. I'll go to the transparency palette menu and I'll go down to Make Opacity Mask. And I get that. How cool is that? Look at that. Now, what the heck is going on? Well, first of all, we can see that our graphic, our JPEG, has been mapped or cut to fit inside our letters, which is what we wanted to. But do you see this really neat white gradation that's happening at the top there? What is that all about? Doesn't that look fantastic? So let me show you exactly how this is working. I'm going to take my opacity mask here. I can click on it. And by the way, take note inside your transparency palette. I have two thumbnail icons now. We'll talk about these two guys in just a second. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the transparency palette menu and choose Release Opacity Mask. That takes me back to where I started. Now here's the deal. Here's how it works. When you're working with opacity masks, any areas inside your shapes that are filled with black don't show through. Any areas that are filled with white do show through. That's why I used a gradient here so you can see what's happening. So in other words, when I go and marquee both my cookie dough and my cookie cutter, my galaxy and my text, and I go back to my transparency palette and go Make Opacity Mask, that's why I can't really see much towards the top, but down towards the bottom where things really start to happen, that's where I can see the JPEG showing through.